So you might wonder, what is the recommendation and why is this woman talking to us about the recommendation? So most of you are aware that Namibia is a member of the United Nations. And as a member state, we pay membership and we get certain benefits as part of that membership. And one of the UN agencies that we are a member of is UNESCO, which is the United Nations organization that has a mandate on science. And UNESCO does several documents to help the member states attain their development goals. Most of you have heard of the Sustainable Development Goals. That is the UN aspiration that the government have agreed to. This is how we want the world to be. In addition to that, there's aspirations at different levels. So the recommendation is a standard setting instrument that the government's member states agreed to. So in 1974, there was a recommendation on the status of scientific researchers. They updated and modified science and scientific researchers. And this, when you're talking of sciences, we are not only talking of the natural sciences, we're also talking of the human sciences. So human sciences and social sciences. And basically what this recommendation is an aspiration to say, this is how we want to be, especially in science, technology, and innovation. And the reason why you guys are here to discuss well-being is because you are scientists. And after I'm done with my presentation, maybe in the discussion you can reflect if you agree on this recommendation. So there are 10 key areas in the recommendation. And please bear with me, but I all about technology, innovation, and blah, blah, blah. Nobody talks about human, but the dignity of the scientist. What's the point? Is science is a part of member states' efforts to develop more humane and just and inclusive societies, and serves to further the United Nations ideals of peace and welfare of humankind. So you can see the keywords highlighted here is human dignity, progress, justice, peace, and respect. The question is, are the scientists having this? The need for science to meaningfully interact with society and vice versa. Member states, governments, and the general public alike recognize the value and use of science technology for tackling global sciences. So what I'm reading out is the vision statements, where the governments want to be, what the member states signed up for. So you as scientists, I want you to take note and think, when you're doing your sciences, as a scientist right now, do you think in your situation the 10 key areas are being reached, or are we getting there? This is the roadmap. The role of science in a national policy and decision making. So member states should use scientific knowledge in an inclusive and the agenda of Hitler or whatever. It's supposed to be for a common good. Member states are urged to treat public funding of research and development as a form of public investment, the returns on which are long-term and serve public interest. Okay? Point number 5, mind you, our government has signed up to this. So 5, inclusive and non-discriminatory working conditions and access to education and employment in science. All citizens, this is the aspiration of initial education and training needed for scientific research, science conditions, the participation May I get permission to remove this mask? Okay. So also the scientists in the audience, certain views, when you do your research, some of your results thought to be thrown away, you know, those things. 8, I'm almost done. Scientific integrity and ethical codes of conduct for science and research and their technical applications. Establish suitable means to address ethics of science and research integrity through developing education and training regarding the ethical dimensions of science. Number 9, the vital importance of human. I guess this is more interesting for people who are unemployed. Reaching there. And Josephine will facilitate more. And then the last part, the role of member states in creating an enabling environment for science and research. Member states, government and non-government stakeholders alike should create a stimulating environment for a sound science system with adequate human and institutional capacities by facilitating satisfactory work conditions, moral publishing and sharing of data results that meet adequate quality standards and by monitoring the implementation and impacts of such efforts. Now, I know it was a mouthful, and I'm happy to share this document afterwards, but I think we should be aware of the benefits that you're actually entitled to. And this is a roadmap, just like the SDGs that the government has signed up to. So, this event and the Science Week is supported through this initiative. A CEDA-funded, CEDA is a Swedish agency, a CEDA-funded project. And the goal of this project is to support the member states to report, monitor, to implement, is to support member states to implement, monitor, and report on their progress on the UNESCO recommendation on science and scientific researchers. Thank you very much, Frida. So funding is tackling 6 African countries. I'll get to that. And basically, this is the first reporting cycle. It started in 2017, and this year we are reporting on it. The Ministry of Higher Education submitted a report on the current status of STI in the country. And then the next cycle will be from, it's supposed to be 22 to 2025. So every 2 years, the UNESCO has a general conference where the member states report on their progress on various things that they promise to do. This project is piloted, the CEDA funding. In the world. But this with a recommendation which I just highlighted the 10 key areas of it. And they basically just want to make the science. So thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very fruitful panel discussion on your well-being as scientists.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Mopeni, for that insightful presentation. And I hope that this has at least set a benchmark on us as scientists to start discussing on our well-being and these recommendations that we now just recently have heard of. So with that, here by 3 young Namibian scientists and just give them kind of saying yes to our call and being, so I'm going to give them the floor. We'll start with all right, we'll start with our far right.
Okay, my name is Dika Molondilani. I will introduce myself looking back from where I come from. I'm from Ongwediva. That's where I attended my high school. And that is where my interest in science actually grew from. Because I remember when I was in grade 8, I participated in science fair projects until grade 12. And that is where I kind of kindled my interest in science. So after high school, I went to study mechatronics engineering at the University of Cape Town, which I finished in 2017. And from there, I worked several jobs and my passion is in science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and youth development. And I do believe that the science recommendations are key because science could be a necessity to the world. It can be seen when we had the events of from 2019, 2020, when we were experiencing COVID-19. Today is 21, and there has been so there have been progress in terms of tackling this pandemic, and it's all for the good of science, and it's all science that this is. So science is very important for our community. I'll be able to end here for my introduction.
Hi, everybody. My name is Viola. Sorry. My name is Viola Willemse, and I work at the University of Namibia. I'm a technologist, and I'm pursuing my master's, and my master's is in pure chemistry, where I am focusing on water treatment. So that's where my passion, it has always been there. Water crisis is a very big thing in Africa, so I always wanted to have a platform whereby if industries are discharging water that can, be treated and can be used for other essential stuff. If I can do that, then I'm kind of making a difference as well. And my thing was more about also starting off at a small scale. I've always been a realistic woman, whereby if I can help a neighbor, I'm doing something good. So I've always wanted to, people are always saying back in the Terminator. So I'm like, you know what? it's always good to study further and try to make an impact and like tell them like, okay, this is the knowledge I've acquired and you guys can do something about it. So I've always loved water. Water has always been my passion. It will always be my passion. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Or is it afternoon? My name is John Makali. Metallurgist by profession, or actually graduate metallurgist. I recently graduated at NAST. And I'm currently doing a job attachment at B2 Gold. Regarding my interest, I would say, okay, for me, it's more about, I've been always interested in studying humans, getting to really understand how we get to, do this, and even just going back and understanding the guys that have been the real scientists, for instance, like Albert Einstein, how they get to actually think about these new thoughts and all these things. That ties also to time and all that, but with reference to my high school, because my physical science high level teacher was having to have class history and all that, so I felt that sort of cultivated my interest with the mining industry and getting to actually go in actually bringing value out of the mineral resources that we have. Yeah.
A good panel with us today here. And I think before we start, or when we talk about the well-being of scientists as scientists, I think we want to be able to conduct research in a very conducive and conducive environment where we have an abundance, or at least an availability of chemicals that we need, of the equipments that we need, even the financial assistance that we need. So my first question is, when you started your undergrad, when you're doing your pursuit to finish your that allowed you to conduct proper research, like your labs, were they conducing enough? Were they operational enough? Joe, you can start.
Okay, go first. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. For me, say, it's one of the critical things that obviously we would have as challenges when you do your research. Sometimes is the facilities. Although, I mean, our elders or leaders have obviously been trying their best to, make ends meet and just give us the best they could. I think it still boils down to the gap of facilities you might actually have. That would be now certain equipments, for instance, for specific research that you'd actually require. In my case, for instance, having to have facilities that in general, so I feel like that is one of the challenges that you would want you do at the end of the day. Actually, the because I remember even just doing assignments and all these kind of things. It's the fact that we have you. So for instance, our environment, because for me, I remember I was doing a corrosion assignment and we actually asked to just to come up with the impacts of all of corrosion, for instance, in our environment, and make reference to real case problems. But then it boils down to a case where there isn't really, because obviously you're going to have to reference your data with the sources and all that kind of stuff. So it becomes a challenge because then there's no published data on that. And not only that, I remember there was a case now where we actually even had to reference some of the data that was available, but then it was not sort of published, but we got to know about it through just, being taught by our lecturers and all that. So it became an issue also of where the companies would actually not be happy if, say, they get to hear about some of the data or the work that was done regarding, their equipment, for instance, was published, or you get to speak about it. So you cannot obviously get to reference some of the data, for instance, that has not been published, because some companies would rather prefer some of the information that perhaps was done on a specific equipment, for instance, to remain, not published
to
and all
remain
that.
not published.
So I feel like for me, that was one the main challenges one would actually, go through as
when we didn't have functional equipments, we would ask industries that have them, and they're so willing to always assist. That's such a really nice thing, and one really learns a lot when you go into the industry and you use their equipments, and you just have this interchange of knowledge. So when you go to industries, rather than also doing your research in the lab, when you're just there all alone with your supervisor. So when you get to an industry, that's actually a really nice when you first start, when you got accepted, you're so excited. So towards the end, you don't anymore have the strength because you feel like, I'm at the end, so you don't put in too much enthusiasm. Yeah. So I think it was also one of challenges, having the right friends and having to speak with your mentor. It really helps a lot. So that really helped me.
Okay. Yes, Dika.
Oh, okay. For me, I would like to look at it not only from my point of view, but from also other people, because I work a lot with children, school children. And these children are also scientists because they are very much interested a lot of schools don't have science labs. They can be able to learn all the theories from the textbook, but because you cannot have that hands-on experience, reality. I'll make an example. For example, in physical science,
Experience. That you are now studying
actually, let me tell you that in it, and you cannot even operate a computer, but you need to be typing your assignments, so you need to be doing research. So this is where so it disadvantages you greatly in that manner. Yes, and then if you look now at going deep into the content, it's even further because because our curriculum is very beautiful. Yes, if you look at our curriculum, it covers a lot of knowledge areas, just that the hands-on experience is the one that, in my view, is the limiting factor.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. All right. Okay, so Joe wants to add something on. You can go ahead.
It's actually just with reference to your question where you speak about when he said he's actually just speaking for himself, but also for people that he have worked with and all that. So I think also for me or for other people that I've worked with or and I've experienced is that another problem is this. It's because now when you do research, for instance, you get to do research that speaks to the challenges that are endured in the industry and all that. And as an undergraduate sometimes, the problem is there is that lack of understanding of what actually the challenge is in the industry, then that comes as a result of lack of exposure. So at the end of the day, that also kind of bit limits the extent to which you actually get to, find research work that would really be meaningful to solving the problem. Because some things, they're very much theoretical to really get on the internet, but there's that part now that where you have, say for instance, experience, it really helps you now to actually do meaningful contribution now towards the research problems that you're trying to address. So I think that is also one of the challenges that
yes. Yes. I see everyone nodding like that's really one of the things that you're expected to go into an industry and you just don't know where to start because you're not fully exposed and you don't have the experience that they require. Okay. New research and stuff like this. The workload at university, anxiety attacks, when I think of calculus, I thought I wrote the test and I different, and my next question has to do more with your mental well-being and just your whole overall mental health as scientists. And did your respective institutions have, say, centers of maybe a therapist that you can go talk to, a mentor, or like a place where you can release other than just go to places that I cannot mention online, but yes, but did they create that environment where you are able to you are stressed out and you just want to talk to someone like a therapist or career guidance counselor or something like this?
Before I actually answer the question, I just want to sort of share something I actually just came across recently. It's a meme. I actually read it up and then I just had to follow up regarding the story. I think the caption was, I think one of the students, I think it's Kwasan province in Nigeria, where there was a student that actually, beat up her supervisor, and she actually went in coma and all that. And I mean, it may actually seem funny, I mean, sometimes when you read all these things, but thinking about it, you get to really, get to feel perhaps, or get to actually get a picture. For instance, could it be that this is the only student that actually gets to go through what, he went through to make all these decisions? Because obviously for someone to go to that extent of beating up a supervisor, it must be that they were really fed up about it. So I think your question in terms of the well-being of scientists or students as they do their research is really important, as in it gets to affect us, but in somehow we do not get to really see the extent of damage that can actually bring, and also just in terms of the quality of research, for instance, that student can do. So I think there's a problem where you have the workload that piles up, and then eventually it gets to your nerve. And then I think there's also those challenges that you'd have, obviously, depending on the relationship you have with your supervisor and all that. Because sometimes it's really not that your supervisor is trying to make things hard for you, but it's also just them trying to guide you. But then there are cases where we find it as if
You don't know how to respond to that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
end up having that situation. But
Yeah.
in my case at NAST, I felt like our institution really tries the best, because before you actually, do your research the following semester, you're sort of having given a research sort of preparation module, and which is actually even for free for that case, where you get to actually just be prepared and get to be taught in terms of how to go about your research and all that. However, I think going forward, I think it would also be best if you could have a means or a place, not a place, but how you could sort of support the students, not only in terms of understanding the academic part of how to go about their research, but also having that support in terms of now, be it now the emotional or social or financial support they may
Yeah.
need actually doing their research.
Yeah.
Because one of the challenges, sorry for taking so
Yes,
long.
I'm giving you 1 extra minute.
All right, cool. And another one of the challenges that you'd actually have during your research is actually the finances that you'd have, because sometimes, like for me, I would have to travel up and down to go collect sample from Navakhab gold mine. And it was really also that sometimes you don't really have money, and then obviously the mine would just give you, a certain period to go and collect your samples, and also it's the time that is. And also the other challenge was that during even the time when we were presenting, because obviously of COVID, you'd have some students and that would have, for instance, their family members or relatives that would have passed on, for instance. And then at the same time, you're still expected to sort of, present in the right state as you would be, for instance, when there was no any of those challenges that would happen.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would also be good if there's such kind of support system that would actually be there for you in times of difficulty, and actually your supervisor building that relationship with you to actually understand the challenges that you're actually going through, and just being that support system.
Yeah.
So
Okay, let's give it a thank you, Joe. Let's give it over to Viola. Yes.
Okay. So science is no walk in the park. I think everybody knows that. So it gets stressful from year 1 up until your final year. It gets really bad, and I feel like it gets worse the more you see that you're getting closer to the finish line. What I actually really liked about this is just my personal one, because I really have set goals for myself before going to university. While I was in university, every time I always set realistic goals for myself. So when I set realistic goals for myself and I see like, okay, I'm a little off, it's always good to have that support system. And I've always had my friends for it. I really friends that always go like, okay, you can do better than that. And one thing that I feel like the institution or the university can do better is maybe get people who are professionally good at it. I mean, like, it's really nice when you have a friend that can, push you up when you're down, but I feel like it gets way better when you speak to somebody who really has the understanding of what's going on. Somebody that really has understand the brain anatomy, that really understand that this is the challenges that people go through, because none of us are immune to it, especially when you're in university. So I think our institution, yes, does have a counselor, but then if you think about it, if you have to put the statistics up, having probably just 5 of them, and then you see how many students you have, it's unrealistic, So maybe also it's a thing of like trying to also the lecturers or whoever is in the institution to kind of take an extra program so they can really have an understanding on how, how it goes, because they have an understanding already, they have been there, So it's just to have that further knowledge on how to understand people with different situations, that will really go well, because well-being is such a broad, it has such a broad context. It has so many dimensions. You talk about your mental health, your emotional health, financial stability. There's so much that goes into somebody when somebody goes like, I'm well, and it takes a lot. So it's very important to really get people who can understand all of those concepts and really try to make us better. I mean, like, yeah, we can ourselves, but it's always nice.
They know what to say, when to say, and most especially how to say it. Yes. Daudika?
Okay, I think it's very important for an institution to have mental health facilities, because that is a serious issue, especially where there's a lot of young people in one place. So I was lucky that at the institution I was, there was a mental health clinic. And in addition to that, they will give you a support system whereby they will match you to a mentor who is like, maybe you are first year, they'll give you a third year mentor for a final year, just to warn you that, okay, this is not a walk in the park. You don't say that you excelled your high school and you come here and thinking that when you are used to getting 90s and now you are getting 20%, don't go kill yourself. So those kind of awareness is very important. But I think it's also very important that they let you know to be able to balance your life.
Yeah.
Because in the end of the day, you are in university, you should have a balance between your social life and your academic life, so that you are a better person, you build your character that way. And even when you get out of the institution then and enter the job market,
Yeah.
you are prepared for it because you are a stronger person. And I think that is what the university should be able to prepare you for, not only make you an academic, but also be able to be socially able.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So yes, and university is your young life, right? So you need to be able to explore different situations. You are away from home for the first time. And it's also important that you don't then get carried away and forget about your academics and end up in the social life, because it happened to a lot of people. I know a lot of people who got excluded from the university because they failed, because they failed to pay attention to their academics, because they will go drinking or sprees and forget the reason that they are here. It's just like Bella said, she has set goals for herself. That is actually something I wish I knew back when I was in university, because that sometimes other people are just freestyling, but it's important to know why you are where you are.
Yeah, no, that's very good. I like when you said that they should also prepare you to when you get into the working environment, because now it's another environment, it's another dimension and stuff. But now, do you think it's also important for us to have centers like that among grade 11s and 12s, because these are the ones now going into university, so that at least when they do get to that point, it's like a smooth transition, and it's not like something they just get into just 1 minute each. I just want to say, yes, it's important. And why? One right. Sentence each. Yes.
Really make it short, because I already wasted time. But I think it all boils down to what Viola said earlier, mentorship, where you guide you through what a specific career field what should you say, what should that we actually have as when the scholars come to university, because they will end up jumping from one course to another. So should you have a case where you actually start earlier, such that they are already guided through, and then they get to develop the love for what they want to do. By the time they get to university, it becomes easier for them to choose what they really want and not waste time on different courses and change and all that.
Yeah. Okay.
He said it all, but what I can add is, we all know this, there is a gap between high school going into university, and there's still another gap between university going into a workplace.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important, like we know that's the problem, but we need to get solutions.
Yeah.
So we need to think about realistic, systematic solutions that we can get to actually things that we can change in our study policies. Like maybe we can implement subjects that are of importance or relevant, or that will really make people understand that high school is a completely different environment or different game ball when you're coming into university. I think those are subjects that they can implement at a very tender age, because you know when people are in high school, they're very enthusiastic. I said it, I think I said it before. Yeah, you have this enthusiasm, you want to get into university, but you don't even know what are you passionate about, what really drives you, what fuels you. Do you just want to study for the sake of studying, which is theoretical, or do you really want to make a difference into society? And I think that is the whole establishment of school, trying to better yourself so you can make a difference in society. And also, it's very important to also, when you're choosing your career path, to know, is it realistic in the era that you're in? Is it realistic right now? If you're studying for it, are there job opportunities for it?
Yes,
I mean, these are all important things that can be spoken about at a high school level. Like, is it, yes, you want to become this, but is there job opportunities?
right.
You know, and also more implement stuff where you can think more of being an employer than being employed. It's very important to bring that at high school, where people are more innovative and creative and think more about that. Like, oh, I don't want to work for somebody. I want to actually establish my own industry one day and have chemists and biochemists in whatever industry you want. It's very good to already start place. It's very important to actually have an interchange of knowledge between students as well as the industries, because sometimes, yes, these curriculums have been set decades back, right? Things have industrialized, you know, people are looking for better in industries. People are being taught curriculums that were established years ago, but industries are satisfied with that already. So they're looking for the next big thing, because they're also competing with industries in developed countries. So it's very important to always change our curriculum based on where we are and the standards that we are. Then I think that will really make a difference.
Okay. All right. Yes, Dodika. One sentence, ne?
Okay. I think there's a need for career guidance.
Yeah.
Because you know, children in school, they are learning these subjects, but they don't really know why they are learning them.
True.
And that could be a setback.
Okay. All right. So it is important. Yeah. Joe is just like, I want to, let me just say, no. Okay. We will definitely do have another follow-up discussion later on in the coming year. But I want us to focus on just recommendation number 5, which talks about the working conditions of researchers and the equal opportunities for researchers and stuff. But now that you guys are now in the working environment, and you just not recently graduated, but you just recently graduated, but others have graduated for a while. So what is the difference between in the working environment now? Is there platforms for you to be innovative as a scientist, platform to professionally develop your career? And this, I know this will probably be different from Downdika, because he is like a businessman, like of a own boss, like of a better word. But I want to start with you. What is the difference now in you being in charge? What is it that you do to create this conducive environment for your colleagues and just professional development?
Okay, I think it's all about where you are placing yourself as an individual. So if you are really someone who is not waiting for opportunities to come to you, but you are someone who goes and look for the opportunities, I think you can be able to have better chances of success. Of course, there will be some limitations. Maybe you don't have access to what you really need to be able to carry out your experiments or your research. But if you try to go an extra mile, for example, if you come to Minds in Action, you can be able to be provided the platform whereby you can be able to build different projects. That's what we do with school learners. That's what we do with students who are coming from the Faculty of Engineering at NAST. They come to us and be able to build their projects. So just recently, in this month, the month of November, we have gotten a lot of students coming from NAST to coming to build their projects with us because we have the facilities, we have the equipment, and the community where they need to collaborate together to be able to build different projects. But of course, it's only those ones who come. And so I was even inspired by some of the students that saying that they got very good marks for their projects because they had access to components to be able to build their projects. So usually what they do is that they'll do a final year project whereby they will just do a simulation, or they will just do a write-up, but not get to build something. But in engineering, it's very important for you to be able to build a prototype. And just because you are able to present a prototype, your lecture will be able to actually not dispute with what you are capable of, because you can be able to show it. And that's why they were able to score good marks. So I think it's about individuals and how far you will be willing to go to look for opportunities.
And the fact that you have to, the students come to you and you have to guide them to say, on to build this. So in a nutshell, you are also kind of developing yourself professionally. You are getting to learn new ways on how to create these models, and so that you can properly show them, right?
Yes, if you have seen me 5 years ago and the knowledge that I have about now in engineering, it's completely different. I'm more comfortable about the concepts and their applications. And so are my colleagues, because what we do is that we all go through training before we can train another person. And this constant lifelong learning is what we want to encourage in our community.
Very good. Okay. All right. Viola, let's now that you are now a technical assistant. Yes. So what is the difference, and are you given that platform to enhance yourself professionally so you can give to the ones that you are teaching or assisting?
What I actually like being in an academic institute is people are always willing to learn. That's what academics is all about. So when one comes up with something that's innovative or something that's maybe wanting to test on, people are always willing to assist. That's what I really like about the department. They're always willing to assist. And what he said is it's all about going an extra mile. So in life, we're always going to be having, obstacles, but then we don't stop there. If you go an extra mile, nothing comes out that's wrong from going an extra mile. So that's what I like about it. Like, yes, there are challenges, because obviously sometimes you have a nice topic in mind or something you want to research on, but unfortunately, because of instruments or equipment, then you're like, oh, I can't go further than this because I don't have the necessary equipment. But then if you open your mind and go like, who has it? Then you're already trying to solve a problem. So it's just all about going an extra mile. So the institution is they love new ideas. They love, testing stuff, doing some scientific research. So so in that sense, they're good. Yes.
Sorry, is this the University of Namibia or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So, Joe?
Can you just rephrase the question?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's fine. I was saying, now that you're in the working environment, is there platforms for you as a scientist now to be innovative and to professionally develop yourself, and you're not limited to the lack of equipment or the lack of funds and things like that?
I think the platform is there, because not so long ago I actually got you were also there. We had a meeting with Chamber of Mines regarding the event that we're actually planning, which was sort of like an idea to sort of have a student research, or not student but research colloquium, where we have the young profession in the industry coming up with their own research. But to answer the question, I think the platform is there. However, I think it's also a thing of, there are so many young undergraduates out there, or professions, that are not so aware of the facilities or where to go. For instance, should there be a specific research that they want to do? Yes, regarding the research, for instance, that one would want to work on, such research institutions that has been established, which is actually the research center Chamber of Mines have with NAST. The support usually that you'd get would obviously be navigated by the topic. Obviously, like you were there in the meeting, we cannot afford, to do research topics or that would, for instance, be focusing on going to Mars, for instance, because we do not have the facilities and all that. And I think most of the researches that would be suggested, for instance, by the industry, it would be based on the challenges, for instance, that they are currently being faced by the industry. But like I've said, most of these things would require you to have that industrial exposure and having worked at this specific, company for you to really have a good understanding of it and for you to really come up with good work. But I think also, if say, for instance, I want to work on a specific research topic, not necessarily that it should be based on a specific challenge that has been faced in the industry, for instance, or at a specific company, but it should also try to speak to innovative ways of, say, for instance, say, for instance, now I want to come up with a small enterprise for carbon. So for the same thing we're actually using, for gold recovery and all that. Yes, most of the research that we're going to be doing, or the industry would want us to do, faced by the industry, but at the same time, of culture of the young profession that are out there in the industry that would want to work on research projects that would eventually become a business model, for instance, that can be applied. I would make reference to something also that we are currently working on, okay, where we're talking about establishing a steel plant or a foundry here in Namibia, where we basically be recycling, scrap metals and melting them and molding them and casting them into products that we could actually, sell. But the problem is the support that is currently there is not so much, or it was recently now. Let me speak before I got to know about the research center. It was more about we are not brought into the loop with where we could actually go, for instance, if we want to work on projects that would eventually become a business model and it can eventually, produce or contribute to the economic growth of the
Okay, so what I'm hearing here is we need stronger collaboration among either different industries and also awareness on the different equipment or the different could help us to advance ourselves. Just want to give a platform to our online or comments or anything that's fine. We can continue. We have approximation. All right. So in the audience, yes. No, Sarah, need the mic.
Okay, I have a question. I'm taking a lot of airtime here, but I'm just burning to ask. I'm a long-term civil servant and I sit in a lot of meetings and things, and I really appreciate hearing the perspective of people on the other side of the science spectrum. What is your advice to government? Where do you think we are? How far are we to achieving that vision? How do you think we are doing? And what advice would you give government? Ministry of Higher Education, NCRST, and those people.
Right. Okay. Would you? Okay. Yes.
Okay. When it comes to the policy documents, when it comes to development plans, Namibia is known to be having one of the best. But where we lack is the implementation. And I think it's mostly because the institutions like the ones you mentioned in your question, like the Ministry of Higher Education, NCRST, they kind of have a resistance in when it comes to working with youth. I know we have worked with some of those institutions, but there seems to be a lack of plan when it comes to achieving the goals that they have set in the national development documents. I'm saying this because if you look at Vision 2030, today is 2021. Next year is 2022, so there will be 8 years left. Do you really think that we will be able to manage to get everything that we have planned for 30 years in 8 years? And if not, is there a plan for in these institutions, especially the NCRST? Because the Minister of Higher Education will say, oh, we are just policy makers, we are not implementing bodies. And the NCRST, which is the implementing body, is saying they are doing something. They always say they are doing something, but what are they doing? I don't actually care about talking about them because seriously, what are their success stories that we know? We don't they will advertise that, oh, there is a funding grant that is supporting businesses that are coming up, and then they will go maybe they'll have 20 of them, and then they'll pitch, and then they will take 3 out of those businesses. This happened like every year. Is there a business that they can point to and say, that is the business that we have supported from scratch and now it's standing? I think this is the reason that the Vision 2030 in 8 years is unrealistic.
Okay. I mean, like you in Namibian, we have so many knotty issues that we actually need to solve, I think. I mean, for a certain extent, I'd love the government is doing what they can. I believe so. We can say thank you for for the stuff that they've done. But then it goes back to, yes, the policies, we have the best policies, as you said. But then there are also certain alterations that we can make in our policies that best suits us as Namibians. I think we should look for policies where, yes, our policies are really remarkable, yes, but then we can also twist and, you know, change a couple of stuff as well in the policies as well. And also what I love what you said is implementing something. We Namibians are very good at, you know, pointing fingers, you doing wrong, I'm doing whatever. But then I feel like if we can just come together, which is always good, like panel discussions, that's where one really gets to, you know, you sit down, you speak to different entities that are involved and really tackle the problem instead of tackling each other. I think that will really help because we have so many pressing matters in Namibia. Youths are very, like so many graduates are out there that are unemployed. What are we doing with that? You know, there's so many things that we can tackle, and it's better for us to actually get solutions instead of like pointing fingers, where we can look at in policies, how we can better them, how industries as well as higher institutions can work better together. Because on paper, it's like they're working really great together, like there's a corporation and all of that, but then I feel like they can do better. We can always do better. I think that's the whole mindset. As long as we have the attitude of we can always do better, where industries and high institutions more have a closer relationship where like they can say what they're looking for, and then we can, as a university, craft what they're looking for. I think that would really be nice as well.
Okay.
Yeah. To say that, okay, you're saying we shouldn't point fingers, but for me, I think we should point fingers. Because if you look at the traffic lights in Windhoek, you are driving that side of West Lane coming to town, you are driving from Commercial, you find a lot of young people lying around at the traffic lights, doing nothing. They are not using their energy for nothing. They don't have skills to do nothing. So who should be responsible for this? Somebody must be able to
Responsible.
answer these questions,
Yes.
because the reason that the institution is put there is for so that they can be able to solve these challenges.
Mhm.
If you look at youth unemployment, it's of 51%.
Mhm.
Is that acceptable?
Mhm.
Is that where is that our vision for 2030?
Mhm. Mhm.
So we should be able to point fingers at the NCRST that was mandated to be able to create projects that can be able to provide employment for these people. So last night I was watching news. There was this guy from the Kavango region. He grew 45,000 cabbages and then sold 10,000 to AMTA. And then the rest rotted. Why would cabbages be left to rot when we have school hostels, we have hospitals that have children and patients that need to eat? Why is there no body in the government that can be able to coordinate this? Why are they not able to talk to each other? So we should point fingers as youth. If we don't point fingers, then nothing will change.
True. And I feel like also to add on that, we should have ownership on our policies. We should be able to say, if we are coming up with this policy, we need to put people who are going to implement these policies. And people who are not implementing these policies should somehow leave the system. They should be either taken out or should be what's the word?
Held accountable.
Held accountable, yes, for such things for us to actually implement even these recommendations. We have these recommendations that is able to allow us to become better as scientists, So also awareness when our leaders go to these platforms in the UK or wherever they do these meetings, there should be that one person who's responsible to come back and say, listen, this is what we've discussed. This is the product of this discussion. How we need to tell the nation, or at least the very least, tell the universities, NCRST bodies, or these institutions that to roll out this information to the rest of us.
Yeah, it says science for the common good, science for the dignity of the people, science to uplift the skills and the development of the country. Yes, these are all the recommendations among others. And then there's bodies that are put in place to be able to perform that, and they don't.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Joe, before we get to Kombada's question, do you want to say something? Just 2 minutes.
For me, I think I wouldn't, although I acknowledge the points that he actually made, for me, I wouldn't really say I would want to take the angle of pointing fingers. However, I feel there's a role both parties have to play, be it the young professions that would think our leaders are the ones that are responsible to why we do not have we are not in the direction where we are moving. So I think it's a thing where we are actually both responsible, because we need, I think one of the key points was human capital. That is very, very much important when you speak about research. So you need a youth that is very, very much sort of agitated, to venture into all these kind of research that would help us grow into the direction where we want to be. And also that, because if you have to look back in time, most change that we actually experienced, be it through apartheid in South Africa and all that, it has always started with the youth, being very energetic and, bringing up all these suggestions to our elders in leadership position, and actually finding a point where we could actually, work together. And there's another thing also when we speak about, because I find these questions, once the young professions, they start asking questions, I think there's a notion that that it seemed to our leaders that when we get to question about how do we get to improve the current system that is already in place to make it better, to accommodate, and grow, help us grow, it becomes a thing that is taken as to say, we are not acknowledging what is currently happening. But that's actually not the fact. I mean, sometimes it's just how the picture is painted. It's just to actually get to find a way we get to actually work with what has already been established and build on that. And the other thing also, I think it's also the lack of awareness. That also becomes a problem, because then sometimes we really think, there's nothing happening, but then it's just because we are not brought in the know. So I think there's that role that our leaders also need to play in terms of informing the youth to say, this is what is happening, this is what we need from you guys. If we could get a team of say maybe 10 researchers that are going to take up a project like this, they will be compensated for and all that kind of stuff. I feel like that kind of approach would help us get into that direction. And I think one of the questions that you actually asked in terms of
only one question.
no. Okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it is complex, but I think it's something that I noticed from a presentation in terms of how do we get to create that stimulating environment for research and all that. So I think it kind of boils down to that at the end of the day, as us as youth, for instance, being or us cultivating that culture that sparks the interest of the youth to really take up initiatives, for instance, or researches that would eventually result into business cases, as opposed, because I feel like there's the story of science not really being well explained or not well being solved. Because if you have to speak to any other youth, I mean, if you have to make any conversation with any other youth that you would meet on the street, it would mostly about who's the next DJ that is coming to the catch, or who's the best soccer player and all that kind of stuff. It's rarely that you'd have conversations just as a chill out on science. So I think going forward, that also becomes a thing that we need to take up amongst ourselves as the youth.
Okay, 10 minutes, so we can take Kombada's question.
I'm doing research because I think I have the privilege of, I attend those high-level meetings, but I'm exposed to enough young people. Now, before I ask my question proper, I just want to have a quick poll. Who of you, Josephine included, who of you have attended a meeting with the ministers? Okay. Who of you have been involved in a policy engagement meeting? Okay, one. Who of you have been a stakeholder and being consulted or received a draft policy and asked for your comment? None. Okay. This is interesting because according to the United Nations, one of the priorities is youth and gender. And I think Ndaudika touched on an important part to say the engagement, what is on the documents and the engagement with the youth needs to come on par. Now, who of you would like to be engaged in policy engagement? Like if you got a policy document, would you review it? Would you give your input? Okay.
Definitely.
So, but then when I sit on the other side, they complain that the youth are not interested. They send invitations for the youth to come to certain events and the youth don't show up. So do you have any advice on how we can improve to meet halfway? You mentioned about lack of information. Can you give suggestions on what are the platforms that would draw the youth to these boring events? Because at the end of the day, for you to see changes, it starts at policy implementation. The policies are being reviewed every year. There's frameworks for your information. The minister and colleagues just came back from Paris from the 41st General Conference, and they approved the recommendation, the UNESCO recommendation on open science. That will probably come on the airwaves later. Most of this information is available on the websites of the UN and everything. So the two questions I have is, what can I tell my colleagues who sit in the boardrooms? How can we engage the youth better? If we send an invitation, how can we make sure that the youth come? And number two, what platforms can we use to better engage the youth? How can we be cooler?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kompada, for your question. The problem is not policy drafting or policy drawing up. The problem is implementation. So the recommendation I'll make, I'll not make it on drawing up a policy. I'll make a recommendation on implementing policy. So there is a lot of youth organizations, youth companies that are known to be engaged in certain sectors. Those, when it comes, the government then should, or the relevant bodies, the ministries, the departments, should be able to invite those youth who are known to be in certain sectors. So that they can come at the table where the implementation plan is being discussed. So what is the point of inviting the youth to come to make up policies, documents? Those policy documents are there, we review them. But the problem is not the policy, it's the implementation of it. Yes.
Okay, I can take it. I think what you should go back and tell your colleagues is get a youth involved already within your colleague circle. Like have someone from someone as young who can relate to the young scientist or the young academics or something, someone who's already in there, so that whenever you make decisions on raising awareness of these policies that you have in place, or to invite them for meetings, they know how to do it. Because yes, you invite us and we maybe you send emails, but unfortunately, I don't want to say this, but be engageful on Instagram, on social media, and just make noise so we can hear, even though we also have a part to play, so that we come and say, okay, we've heard this, or we have seen this policy. How can we be part of it? But you have the policy firsthand, so we don't know whether it's going to be for a certain or like when you get it, but you have the policy firsthand. So I think the move needs to be from you guys, and it needs to be intentional and authentic, I think. Yeah.
Also, just to also add one thing that I just thought of now. I think it's one of the things, because I don't think it should be an expectations that as you being brought, for instance, to a meeting, you should already from the very start, be able to know what needs to be done. I feel like that is going to take time, you having to actually learn. And I think it's actually better now that you, like you've said, we get to involve the youth, because if we have to speak about, say, for instance, Vision 2030 or Vision 2063 for the African continent, for instance, we are expecting the youth now by then to be the ones that are involved or to be taking up charge of all these things. But then it would make better informed decisions and actually getting to be acquainted with the leaders and getting to learn from them. And then it makes things way faster in terms of growing by the time we have, for instance, to be the ones responsible for all these decisions and policies and implementation of all this.
And also the policies that you're making, or the recommendations, make it not practical, but what is the end? What do you need from us? What do we need to do? I feel like because it has been a culture of just our leaders go and then go to these places and get these policymakers and not be able to transfer the knowledge to us, it should be something that, what do you want? when you go and draw these policies and say, yes, we agree with these policies, what is your vision, even for the youth, even for the country? What is the vision, and how are you going to make that work for everyone? I think that's what we need. Is it realistic? Is it what is the end goal for us and for all these agreements with these policies that our leaders are taking up?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the passion from all the panelists. I just want to clarify, I made a mistake. When I asked the question, I meant to the implementation plan and not the policy. So usually we make the policy or the regulation, and then you have an implementation plan or implementation strategy or an action plan. So yes, you are right. I think I'll give it to Martin. I really appreciate these comments and the feedback, and I will be in touch with some of you.
All right, thank you so much. I have a general question. I think you can tackle it when you go, or you can answer it in due to time now. Also, we are not talking about the people from science, but we are also talking about human science. On my behalf, I'm coming from social science. In all these professions, when as young people, we have to mentor the people from, let me say, high school to close that between high school and university, as well as the gap between the workplace and the university. How does the social scientist and human scientist come in, and where do we meet as scientists so that we can discuss this thing together? And also the coming to policy implementation as well. It doesn't, as we can see on the 10 recommendations here, most of the, how do we create that link so that us as young people can come together, be it from humans or science, where that we corroborate.
Okay, all right. Looking at time, that's a very good question, Matt. Maybe we can spare their question online. Oh, okay.
Thank you so much. I think on the question of to say how can we advise the government on the implementation? I think the youth wants to advise the government. And I think there is also channels and platforms for advice, but unwillingness maybe to say from the leaders or from the government. Like for example, I will talk about ourselves, our project, the Minds in Action project. In the government policies, they are saying that they want to implement STEAM education in all 14 regions. But there is a company that they know that is in Windhoek that is practicing that. Why are they not using these people that have expertise in this field to implement it in the country? When are they going to start? Are they willing to really implement that policy? Also, there was a pilot project of introducing design and technology in the schools. I finished school in 2009 and I did design and technology. When now that study is made, is it now implemented in all the schools, or what is the success story of it? We don't know. So I don't know if I should comment, or is the question to say, is the government really willing now to implement the policies? Because for us, we are willing to implement the policies because we did create projects to implement the policies that we have read. But Why is now that we have set up, they are not coming now to meet us halfway?
Mm.
We are doing it on our own in a difficult way.
Yes. Oh, question. Looking into time, I don't know if we can just spec these comments and and questions, and then tackle it maybe into another discussion that also expand on this on the not necessarily the well-being, but on the recommendations, and we can answer it. Okay, we can get 5 more minutes, and then we can especially the social sciences.
Find the link between all projects that we're probably going to be working on, and I think that would mostly depend on the projects, for instance, or the research, the kind of research, for instance, that we are looking into, for instance. And I think this is where now, like I've mentioned earlier, I think it was one of the points where what is happening in the biochemical industry, for instance, we should be aware to say there's a parametallurgical field that specializes in this and this and that. So I think that makes it easy for us to get to collaborate, because then if I'm aware of what you guys are doing, and then later on at some point I'm going to need some accountant to do some auditing of the project that we doing a pre-visibility study on, for instance, it becomes easy for me to know where to go.
Okay, so I think maybe of creating platforms like such as this, where we can invite everyone from the social sciences, human sciences, because I think also to touch on the concept of science communication, as scientists to be able to communicate better our findings and research to all the other disciplinary, so it's better understood. So we also find what is the link, how can how can I write my scientific research inside? We need to create such platforms for us, information collaborators or human scientists to give us a platform where we just published that we can put it out there for everyone to.
I wanted to add, we operate in a social a connection, because the scientists and the social scientists should be able to say that we can be able to work together to identify problems in our communities that are affecting our communities. And those problems, then the scientific or technical scientists then can come up with solutions to answer those societal problems. So that is one. The second is to say that sometimes there is also issues that affect communities. For example, I'll make reference to the project that was going on in the Kalahari Basin, whereby they found uranium in that full of water and uranium. then all the radioactive water will actually be contaminated and it will not be for human consumption.
Yeah.
But then community of farmers supported by them sign a petition against such mining practices in such a community. And this is when it comes together very well that the community, the social scientists and the technical scientists can be able to see one issue together and be able to stop such an issue. So that's issue I was reading in the newspapers that it has actually been stopped, and it's such a good thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so also just having common societal a common societal solution to them. Okay, that can also do that. All right. So maybe we could just give last words because now we are running out of time. Just any advice that you would give? I think we have given advice already to the government and policymakers and the likes. But just the last words on what would you like to see in terms of the well-being of scientists and in terms of generally our working environment, platform for innovation and the likes. Just two minutes, guys. 2 minutes, yeah.
Okay, 2 minutes. So actually one important thing is, I think this is a personal thing, for a corporation or for anything to work, it's very important for people to have a mindset of really wanting something to be successful. Something we do implement policies, we do all of these things, we do have panel discussions. And go like, okay, this is solutions that are really practical. This are solutions that can be done. So what can I do, you know, to better the situation? What can we do as a corporation or as an institution or whatever it is to better the situation? Because I feel like if we do have that mindset where we want to improve things, not really, but really authentically want to improve things, we're really going to see a difference. And I think that's where our problem comes into action, really taking accountability and really doing what is necessary to better the society.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Joe, you want to go?
For me, going forward, I think I would feel much more comfortable having to witness or to see more of the youth being involved or at the table or having a seat, you know, in most of all these meetings that would happen, you know, relating to the future of mining, for instance, and actually recognizing the inputs that the youth would bring about, although sometimes they may not really be informed, but having to actually have that conversation to say, we acknowledge what you're thinking, we have seen this in the past, however, it would be best we do this, you know, having that conversation. I think that would form the basis of how we could, you know, grow much more faster going forward.
All right.
Okay. Lastly, I would just recommend, and I would really appreciate if we can empower our nation from children them with skills that can be able to, if it's children, to give them a better livelihood, to get them excited about education, to understand that education is such an important thing in the world, that it can change someone's life in your livelihood, in your character, and also on your social standing. In the youth, it will be able to provide opportunities for you for education, for you to be able to start businesses, for you to be able to identify problems in your communities and provide meaningful solutions, for older people to be able to have these skills that they can be able to use to bring bread or food on the table to feed their families. So skills for me, it's very important. And there is a very beautiful policies about skills development in the country. So the government really did us justice in that. But then we have to look at ways and how we can be able to work with youth to implement these skills, because the youth is like the engine of the country. They must be at the center of the implementation whatever is that we would like to achieve. And what we also need is a spirit of energy, a spirit of excitement in the country, that we are proud to be Namibians and we are proud to be able to move Namibia forward. And I think we will all be able to be happy to see Namibia somewhere. And I believe it stands out in Africa, actually. And it has its place there, and we must be able to get it there.
Okay, all right. No, thank you very much. This was a very interesting panel discussion, and I think we have really raised some important points that we could take up again for another discussion in the future. I would just like to thank our panelists for joining us today and giving us such insightful information and for sharing your experiences with us. And I would like to thank everyone else who's online and who has joined us. And I hope you have learned a few things and that it has created some sort of curiosity, especially that you want to better yourself and that you want to the economy of our country. And also on the recommendations of